What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Her Lounge podcast. It's your girl, Mighty Soul. Welcome back, guys. Once again, don't forget, this podcast is brought to you by Her Apparel. Go on there. There's a ton of stuff that we have on sale right now still because I'm trying to bring in the new fall apparel. A lot of this stuff is already in the store. I'm trying to bring it online. So as soon as we can get some of this stuff moving online for the summer, we'll get in the fall added onto the website. And don't forget, guys, I always have promo code Thanks15, and that's my way of saying thank you guys for supporting my brand. And if you want to be a part of Her World, we are also on Patreon. So come on over to Patreon/Her Lounge podcast and be a part of Her World. And before we get started, guys, y'all know I like to start with a positive quote. And it goes like this: "You will never have this day with your children again. Tomorrow they will be a little bit older than they were today. This day is a gift. Just breathe, notice, study their faces and little feet. Pay attention, relish the charms of the present, enjoy today, it will be over before you know it." I have to tell myself that every day, y'all, as my children are screaming their brains out, and one's crying and the one doesn't stop saying mommy, and one wants me to see this. And if you're a mom and you got more than one child, you know what I mean. So I told y'all last week I was going to go start to volunteer at one of the elementary schools, and I finally went to the orientation last week, actually during the podcast right after I had to go to the orientation, to be honest. So I went to the orientation, and it was quite interesting what I learned, and saddening at the same time. And it just goes to prove that whether you are a two-parent household or a separated parent house, or not even that, I'm sorry, because you're not in the same house. So separated in general, it is so important for both parents to participate in your child's life. Even if you don't like your other half, if you are separated or divorced and you can't stand them, try to find a decent way to get along with them, because for the sake of your kid, not for any other reason. And I know that's probably harder said than done, but what I saw this past week was crazy, because I could not believe that there were that many children that cannot read. We shouldn't be in third grade, in fifth grade, and moving on to junior high, and our children are still not being able to read. When I first became a parent, I remember when I would go to the pediatrician's office, and we would always get a new book. I already read to Penny. Sadly, I don't know if you just know this or what, but I read to Penny regardless. I didn't know how important it was to read to her. But my mom, as I've always said, was a big book reader. So we always had a ton of books at home. And even though my mom didn't speak English, she bought us English books, she bought us Spanish books, but we had books in our house at all times. It didn't matter. And because of it, I feel that that's the reason why I have so many books, or had so many books ready for when Penny was born. And I also kept a lot of my books from when I was a little girl, because I just enjoyed to read when I was little. I wish I could do the same now. But, you know, it's important, whether it's you reading to your kids. I don't know, and I haven't looked into why 20 minutes is the number. I don't know who came up with this 20-minute number, but it's I see the importance of it now. So I've always practiced with Penny. We've always done certain things about learning how to read. We've always had these like level 1 books, sight word books, and I was constantly always teaching her these things. And I realize that now that she's in kindergarten, how much it has helped her, because she's, you know, passing through these early on books that the teacher is giving with flying colors. Like, it's not a problem for her at all. So it's very easy for her. So while I was there, I learned that a lot of the kids are not able to move forward because they are not able to read, which that should not be the case, because math problems, word problems, you have to read them. Science, you have to read it. We need reading for everything. It's not one of those things like Algebra 2. I don't know where you'll use that in life unless you're a scientist. Would a scientist use that one? Algebra 2? Shit, I don't know. I don't know who uses Algebra 2 or pre-cal or any of that.
Physicists, scientists, architects.
Yeah, see? So, I really don't know the purpose of that. If anything, if I had to make a curriculum, I would probably do like percentages are important, addition, multiplication, division, like all of that, like how to use your taxes, how to calculate shit, like that's stuff that I feel are important to teach. Algebra 2, I don't know. Even Algebra 1. Like can't say that I've used a formula ever in my life for anything that I've done in my career. Geez, I'm trying to think, but I don't think so. So anyway, that was my point to that. But the reason why I talk about that is because I feel like there's finally some change starting to happen. So this program that I finally am volunteering for, it looks like they've been there for 7 years. And again, I know if you've heard me always complain about these things, it should not be a problem for us to be, our kids should not have to go to private schools when we're paying a lot of money in tax dollars for public schools. And I believe that it's Spring Branch ISD right now that has this thing happening that's called Come and Take It. And so they have the flag waving along outside of their schools, along with the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. And it's because they're challenging the school district to, or I guess or whoever handles their money, they're challenging them and saying, stop taking our money and what that's left over for the year and spreading it between you guys over there, the higher ends, when we need it in schools. Like, they made really good points. And one of them was children shouldn't have to buy their own school supplies because there's enough money for the school districts to try to purchase school supplies. They're given that much money. You know what I'm saying? Teachers shouldn't have to buy school supplies.
10,000 a kid.
There you go. So it's 10,000 a kid. So there's no reason why children should have to, parents, shouldn't have to. If you're paying taxes in that area, there's no reason you should, on top of that, have to still buy your kid the school supplies. Still have to buy. And y'all, I'm talking from a business standpoint. I feel like Marissa and I have said this a million times. We should all be questioning how they budget the money and the school districts, because there's no reason why children should have to buy all the teachers. I mean, I got a list from Penny's teacher, her wish list the other day. And she sent in, they have an app for her school. And she was like, hi, parents. They asked for index cards. And I was like, what? I was like, why are y'all needing extra stuff? I don't know that anything besides school supplies, I had to bring anything additional throughout the year. If you ran out of crayons, the teacher would write a note and tell you, the parent, hey parent, you need to buy your child some school supplies because they don't have no more crayons and they're out of glue.
It gets a little complicated with that because with the school districts, I don't know how much you know about the way it is, but they're based off of the school board and how they do it. But then they also have a union, a teachers union. And so the waters get really murky because right away when you become a teacher, especially a public school teacher, they automatically tell you, well, your money's going to go here and we have it set up for this thing and your pension and all this stuff. And you're just like, huh, okay. And I only know because my ex-wife, that was the profession I wanted to go into. And so when I learned that, I was like, wait, what? I didn't even really know what the unions were. And then just understanding how deep they're into the school is crazy. Where union members make so much more money than just regular profession. They make more than a president. Did you know the top fields make more than the U.S. president? They have their hands in so many things that with the school education boards, the waters get murky with where the money's being spent, where they're doing it, because if they make the union mad, they can have the teachers go on strike depending on where it's from. That's why school districts are so crazy.
Well, that makes sense then, because that's what I believe that's what's happening right now. I'm going to pull up the article for the Spring Branch School District, what they're fighting about, because that's basically, so I guess, okay, so everybody hates this new, what's his first, like Mark Miles, I think, is the guy who took over the HISD superintendent. He's the new guy that's coming in and making changes. Okay. It was very, it was, you know, that's why social media is so evil, you know, because everything they post on social media, you're like, what? How dare he removes, you know, they were saying that he removed all libraries, and that's now where kids were going to, when they got in trouble, that's where they got sent to now. The library became like the detention center, right? And I thought, wasn't that always where detention was? They had this little area where you sat in detention. Kids, that's where I would see them. Like kids in detention, they would sit them in this like room, and they had to do homework. And I was like, that's their punishment? That's your detention? Like, it was funny when you would get in trouble or whatever. But so what happened is they got rid of librarians, right? So librarians have been removed, and now it is each teacher's responsibility. Now, I'm not speaking for every school district. I'm just speaking to the schools that I am participating in, just so you guys over that we're clear before someone in the comments says, that's not what's happening. I'm letting y'all know. I know. I don't know what Sci-Fair does. I'm talking about HISD and the 5 schools that I will be participating in. That's it. So librarians were removed, right? And teachers are now responsible for bringing their kids, their kids to library and checking out books. And they're allowed to check out any book that they want. So there's no more of that. There's no system of like, hey, we checked out. It's kind of like the teacher knows that every kid in the class, you write down what book, the name of the book that you took, and then that's it. She has a list, and then you have to bring it back. So they get to keep it for a week, and then they bring it back. So libraries have not been removed from the school. However, excuse me, I didn't know that until here recently. A lot of kids, the school where I was at, that I went to volunteer at, Juan. Excuse me. How about they used to call the library the book museum, because they would never go, and it was just a room with books. This year, and with this new superintendent that came in that everybody hates, that the media just attacks and says he's this and that, the principal of the school that we had the meeting with said that obviously a lot of times the reason why a lot of like principals or, you know, assistant principals, even teachers dislike these superintendents is because they're not doing what they think they should do. He basically is coming in and cleaning house and saying, this is not working. This is what needs to be done, period. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you this is what needs to be done. So he's come in and has done that. And the teacher, like the principal said, she was so happy that that was happening because 90% of her staff this year is brand new. 90%. That's pretty much the whole entire school. She's not new. Her assistant principal's not new. And just like a few teachers. And then the good teachers were taken out of a lot of these schools and put into like the high schools where they were kind of needed. And that's kind of where the shitty part comes in, because you have these good teachers at the little elementary school level. I'm about to go all over the place, so I'm going to rewind real quick because there was a reason why I was talking about how we shouldn't have to give so much money to the schools, even though our tax money goes there. This school where I participate at, where I volunteer at now, has a closet where they provide uniforms. They will provide school supplies for those kids that can't afford it. They even have cribs. They have strollers. They have formula, anything that you can possibly donate. They have like a store, and it's literally set up like a store. They took one of the classrooms and turned it into the store. So these kids of whose parents are not making it financially can come there and shop for free. There's no charge to them at all whatsoever, but they get to come there. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's a whole store in the school where like it just made me, it just like, I don't know. Like, I just thought about like, why is this even happening? You see what I'm saying? Like, why are kids having, supposedly uniforms were implemented because it started for me in 6th grade. And that was the first year that they had decided that all schools would pretty much start to wear uniforms. And I remember that the reason they did it was to avoid bullying, so that kids, you know, if you're wearing a better shirt or a name brand shirt, like all that would stop. When I was going to school, they wanted to make it to even where shoes could only also be white or black. Like, not, you couldn't wear like whatever. And then I think that became too complicated to where it's like, well, where do you just find black or white shoes type of thing? And so it was like shoes didn't matter. But it was like, you must have this color, like it was uniform must be done. And I get why it was done, but then it also causes problem for even those parents who have more than one child in a school, you know, because even when I went to go buy Penny uniforms, I was like, well, damn, like this is a uniform. I thought I was supposed to save money with the uniforms. I felt like it would cost, I felt like I could have done a cheaper route to buy her school clothes, like going to TJ Maxx. Even Walmart has some cute little clothes that's probably cheaper, and I would have been able to like buy her a lot more with as much money as I spent. And no, I didn't even buy the name brand one, because I think there's like name brand ones that you can buy. I legit went to the uniform store and bought mine there and Walmart. So anyway, was very sad to see. Predominantly African-American school. There's a few Hispanic kids in there, but they're all part of these bilingual departments, so there's not very many like in the regular area. So that was that. But one cool thing that I did think was pretty cool is, so now they have this new thing where teacher gives a lesson. If the lesson, they kind of get in the middle of the lesson, then it's like teachers asking questions. All right, guys, we're going to do this worksheet. And then from the worksheet, she checks to see who's getting it. Those who don't get it get to stay in that class with her. Those who do get it go to another class, and then they continue the lesson with that teacher. So that way, there's not the entire classroom is getting left behind. It's those that get it get to move on, and those that don't get it get to have more one-on-one, which allows the teacher to probably have less students in the class to where she can focus focus on each one individual, like time to explain, you know, and figure out, well, maybe these two are having the same struggle, so she can kind of sit with them, and then the other students get to leave and go with another teacher, same lesson, same everything, but they're like able to move on so that they get to move on and they're not waiting on these kids who don't get it. I thought that was great. That's something new that they've implemented. Now, another thing is also, which this one threw me off, was it's called the art of thinking. So they're actually teaching critical thinking in school, which I don't know how we went from CRT to critical thinking. Like, you know, like I was very happy to hear that they're teaching them to think for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Not be influenced or be told. So
there's that. I wonder if this principal or whoever is coming in to do these changes has read the book, The Art of Learning, and there's like a series of it, but I forgot. Actually,
that's the name of the program, The Art of Learning, not The Art of...
Okay, so there's the Art of Learning and there's the Science of Learning, and each one of them, they basically, the book breaks down basically school systems and how they're flawed and what's happened, and then it teaches kids and adults even, because I just read this book and I was like, oh dang, I was like, whoa, I didn't even know there's five levels of reading. There's different things, and you're just like, what? It's like, because I knew the first level and I knew levels 4 and 5. I skipped level 2 and 3, which is why there's a big disconnect with me and where my attention goes. Is because
that's what we talked about, like speed reading. I think you and I were talking
reading,
about
and then
that, right?
also cliff notes.
Yeah,
like those two are very important in your overall like ability to read. And so that's something they don't teach in schools. Those two is what usually gets skipped. And so I think this would be a way, like whoever this guy is.
I don't know if it's the superintendent that brought this in or if it's the actual principal that brought this in. So I don't know, but it's starting now at the elementary level.
Mm-hmm. But the good thing is that it's starting. Like there's some kind of change. It's not like, oh, well, I don't think it should be that way. We should have a board meeting. We should have a whole faculty meeting and nothing ever happens, because that's what's been happening for years and look what's happening. So I think some type of movement in any direction is better than just standing still, twiddling your thumbs. And so if somebody's coming in and implementing these things, it's good to like set a good foundation, because right now it's kind of like the border thing. You got to stop the bleeding and then fix what's happening. You got to start from the beginning. Put the teachers that need to go to the high school to start making things happen there, to try to give them attention and try to stop the hemorrhaging. But at least the new kids have the fresh start, where it's like we're not just repeating a cycle over and over again, to where it might be almost hopeless for some of the ones that are already too far gone, but at least there's a starting point for the new one. So I think that's a good plan, because that's how you would start any kind of plan. So just the way you kind of broke it down is like, oh, I could see what they're doing. So it really makes a lot of sense.
And I was so happy to see that, because I was like, when she explained, we took a tour of the school, and she said, this is where we have the art of, what is it? The art of thinking or whatever. I was like, wait, what? I seriously was looking at all the new computers. Like my face was turned the other way, and I was like, wow, they really came in and gave them all brand new computers, which they didn't have. Like they had old school, like, she showed us pictures, and I was like, what? Why'd y'all still have those here? Like, how are you supposed to? Now they even got like new headphones. Like where Penny went to school, I had to provide headphones. But there, they provided the headphones, and they're providing the new computers. I think 5th graders get to finally have like an actual iPad to use. They don't have to come there. So they've given that to like the lower level students get to go there. But it's really cool, because now they come to this place. There's a teacher that actually just teaches the art of thinking. And so they even get to go on field trips to make like decisions. And I just thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I was like, oh my God, now can everybody get on this same page? Not just these little 5 schools that, I'm volunteering at. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be cool if they could do this everywhere. And they might be, and I just don't know, because I'm just now getting involved. And the reason I thought it was important for me to get involved, because if you've been listening to my podcast for a minute, you guys know that this is probably a subject that I talk about a lot, is the school system and how much I hate the way it works. And, and then y'all, I don't know if this is a sign or what, but if I meet one more person that tells me that they homeschool their child, I feel like, oh my God, is that my sign? Check this out real quick, Juan. So I go to church on Sunday. Penny's, they have the new facility is like amazing for the school, for the children's school, but that's also where they have Sunday school. And they have this thing on the floor, and it's really cool. And it's like for kids to play, almost like, what is that? Where you would do the little thing where you flip it and it tells you which color to go. Twister, the game Twister, almost like that. So the kids are just running everywhere trying to catch, stuff on the ground. Anyway, this girl says, hey, I think I went to school with you. And I said, oh, you did? And she's like, yeah. And we get to talking. She homeschools all her kids. And I was like, oh my God. And then I bumped into this girl at TJ Maxx that I also went to school with. And I said, oh, do you live in the area? We kind of got talking, and she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Oh, so come to find out, she lives in the subdivision right behind where we live. Okay. And so then I said, what? I said, oh, so what school does your daughter go to? She goes, oh no, we homeschool. And I was like, what is happening? Why is it that everybody like I'm currently talking to is, I have heard so many more people saying they homeschool their children here lately than I've ever heard in the past. It's always a private school or a public school, but I hadn't been hearing so much of the homeschooling. So it was kind of cool to see that more people are getting into it and getting involved. And I shout out to Sil from my podcast, from my Patreon, who put me on this podcast that's about homeschooling. And that's all this woman talks about. And she began homeschooling during the pandemic because she saw the need of it with her children. And so it's really cool how every parent that she has on there speaking on homeschooling has found it's like every family has to find what works for them. And I guess that's the beauty of homeschooling, is that you find the curriculum, or you make and change and tweak. You may have 2 or 3 curriculums that you use at home to make it work for your family, which I thought was really cool. My aunt used Abaca, I think is how you pronounce it. But that's a Christian homeschooling program. So my cousin graduated 2 of my cousins graduated at 16 from high school. They did the same thing as what this lady was talking about. So they started taking college credits kind of when they were already in high school. So when they started college, they could be ahead of it. So my cousin just turned 19. 19. She graduates this year from college. Most of us are graduating high school at 18.
I think during the pandemic, it really showed a lot of parents that, I don't need the schools. And I think it also showed how bad the schools were, because that's something that the art of learning and science of learning really teaches is it shows that like this failed system of the schools that we have, it's really trained to burn you out of learning. Meaning by the time we're done with school by grade 12 and by colleges, like none of us think, oh man, I'm going to read for fun. It's just because it's like, we were trained to like, that's something we have to do, we want to do. And if you could teach kids like how to learn something quick and they can get the skill down without having to tediously go in and do it day after day after day, where it's like, no, I know the skill, why do I have to keep hammering it into my head? I think kids are like, I picked up a skill. Okay, cool. What's the next skill? Okay, cool. What's the next skill? And they can move a lot faster, while some kids learn differently, and they don't have to be burned out. You're not boring them. You're not doing anything. It's like they're really able to learn, process, and then like basically consume everything faster at a faster rate because they can. Because we think of kids as fragile, but really kids can actually intake a lot more knowledge, and they're really good for it. So if you're able to do that at a young age and teach them all that stuff, and without boring them to death and without having them sit down in a classroom for hours and hours and hours, and really help them like develop like an overall, not just mentally but physically and all the other stuff, they're going to eat it up and then want to know, what else can I learn? What else can I learn? And they'll be able to do a lot more than just what the mainstream like teaching and this terrible system of like bad knowledge.
Come in, bring
because
a
it's
pencil,
just like
paper. Like,
it might as well be prison, because it's like
that is.
Yeah, it is. It's the same format, because it's like, do what I say, do this. Once they teach you how to read, they have you sit down and read silently. So like they were like, we know you can read now. Sit down and do it silently. Wait right there. And the teachers are just there on their phone or some shit.
Good employees, right?
Yeah.
Like they're just teaching us to be not how to be entrepreneurs. It's like they're teaching you to be the working class, because they want to be able to hope when you are done, the government says, this is what I'm going to do. And that's a whole other topic, but it all
feeds into each other.
Exactly. So I promised, so one thing that I want to start doing here is, going to what you said about the reading thing is really true, because I noticed that when I give Penny a little bit of harder books to read, not so much the level ones, she gets frustrated, she gets mad, and she'll start to cry. And she'll say, I don't want to read anymore, right? So for me, it would frustrate me that she didn't want to, and I would force her. And I'm like, you got to learn how to read, right? Like, this is a must. Do you understand how important it is? And she likes to text, like her older sister, or she'll like to text me when we're out of town. I'm like, and so my thing is always like, how will you know how to text if you don't learn how to read, right? So then I realized that wasn't working for us, right? So I said, okay, so I'm gonna let her read the easy book on her own, and then I'm gonna read the harder book to her so that it's more fun, and then I'm gonna ask her questions about the book. And then I'm gonna have her just find these sight words that we're currently, reading. So I hold the book up like this, like the way teachers read to their students. And so I'll say, all right, these are our sight words, don't forget. So I have a notebook card for her like this, like an index card, and she knows what her sight words are. And I'll say, if you spot one, you got to stop me from reading it, and you got to read it. So I had to make it that way. Now, Penny, since day one, and this is what I'm talking about, like a 2-parent household and, observing your children. That's why I thought this quote was good, because it says, they will be a little older than they were today. And this is on there, like, pay attention. And then, study their faces, their little feet. And I'm super observant of my kids, and I know like what mannerisms and stuff. And I knew for Penny, since she was a baby, I knew she would sit and she would be curious, and she would, oh, okay. And so it was really easy to teach her. And with Sunny, when I tried to sit with her and do the same things she was not about it. No. Those are her exact words, by the way. And so I'd be like, okay, so she's not willing to cooperate with me. Meanwhile, I had all types of learning toys for Penny when she was little. Jimena has just turned around and ruined them, colored them, broken them. They didn't work for her. And that's why she's going to school at 2 versus you couldn't pay me to put Penny in school at 2. But I saw the difference in both my children where, she's not going to let me like sit with her. And so the one thing where I work with her is because is with coloring. And with coloring, I noticed that's where I was able to teach her colors, was with coloring, not me sitting there playing the bear game where they have cups and now it's your turn. And it was, you put the bears in each color, you spin the dice. Penny and I would play it all the time, but that game didn't work for Sunny. She wanted to put all the bears all the time. So a lot of times as parents, we need to find solutions for our kids so that we kind of understand their learning. And I know that sometimes we're tired at the end of the night. You're like, oh, do I really have to read to them? Dang, why we got to do this homework? Like, Penny has real homework. Like, she totally came home with sentence structure. I said, aren't you in kindergarten? Like, why are you doing sentence? And it's like first, comma, and then it's like, period and periods and exclamation. I was like, I told Pete yesterday, I was like, do you really remember us learning any of? Do you remember that, Juan? Were we doing sentence structure in kindergarten? Was your son?
Well, is she dual language?
No.
No? Okay. I know dual languages will do that, but as far as like just English, full English classes, no, not really.
Right.
But one thing about this as well is like just thinking about that. This could be a challenge too, because I know we were growing up different, and now I'm just starting to look at things a lot different, where it's like we were taught like reward and punishment type of things. Mm-hmm. I think there's another option as far as like reward. So like they've done some studies, and you can even implement this on your own, but like they've done some studies where they found that, and this, I say this not because I'm putting down anybody's kids, but like kids at a certain age up until about 8, they have the same mental capacity as a dog. And so what they found with dogs is when they teach them something and they reward them within the first 30 seconds, they retain and learn fast. Now, after 30 seconds, between 30 seconds to a minute, they sometimes learn. It's a lot harder. It takes longer. After a minute, they don't learn at all. So basically, if you're hitting your dog because they pooped on the floor or something, you hit them after a minute, you're not teaching them anything. You're just beating your dog. They can't learn. They don't even know why you're hitting them. They just think like, oh my God, they're going to get scared of you. But if you teach them within a couple of seconds of them doing it, they retain it a lot faster. Same thing with kids. So like now, if you take that principle and you apply it of like, if you can get your kid to do something difficult and you tell them, after this, when you finish, we're getting ice cream immediately. If you reward them within that 10 to 30 seconds,
sure,
they're gonna like, oh my God, wait a second. You're telling me if I read this hard stuff, I get ice cream for this one, but not for the easy one? They're gonna be proactive and try to finish it. Yeah, Mom, I already finished. Oh yeah, let me ask you some questions. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I want this kind of ice cream. And they start doing it for the reward, and it fuels them to do anything because now you're giving them a goal. And it's teaching them long-term thinking as far as like they're going to be able to process something that when they get older, they're going to be able to set goals and know like, okay, I'm going to do that, but how am I going to reward myself to keep it long-term? So you can actually take these principles and overall it'll start to affect like their actual lifestyle as they grow up. So like understanding like the reward system and knowing how to reward them, like what does Penny like being rewarded for and what does Sunny like being rewarded for, because they're completely different kids. This one learns by herself, this one learns it in a group setting. So it's like what do you get? Okay, so like maybe you get more time with your friends, maybe you get more, you know, whatever they're interested. So if you can find those little things of like because that would be also something that I think you teaching your kids at home is learning a lot about their personality. Is like, oh my God, so this kid doesn't do this, but I guess she learns physically or she's interactive, not just I can just tell her. So like there's all kinds of stuff you can learn that. But like these are skills you can take across to, like it's not just a matter of reward and discipline, it's reward, and they'll be able to get it. Pretty cool.
And it's interesting you say that because so the church, so this program that I'm doing the volunteering with is through my church, which is Second Baptist, and the church gave every child in the school 2 books. And they were telling, when we had the orientation, they talked about how happy a lot of kids were that they got to take 2 books home. And they kept asking, are you sure these are mine? Like, I get to take them home? Like, I don't have to bring them back? And they're like, yes, they're yours. Like, you do not have to bring them back. And so they were like my book to keep? And they were like, yes, your book to keep, you know? And the principal was saying that a lot of students don't have books at home. They don't own not one book at home. And I found that crazy. There is no parent reading to them. There is no parent sitting down with them to actually see if they're understanding what they're bringing home. And it broke my heart because I'm doing kindergarten because I figured, well, I have a kindergartner. Maybe I'd do better with the kindergartner, you know. And it broke my heart to see little kids that little that their parents are not like giving them like attention or providing like this, how important it is, you know. But then it makes you think like, okay, they must have also not had it. You know what I'm saying? They must have not had a parent that sat with them to read, or they must have not had, and again, they might be single mothers also who have a lot that they have on their plate. But I think even as a single mother, I think you need to find just a little bit of, you know, wherever you got to reach it out of, that little energy as a mom, you got to find it in you to work with your children. Like, it's so important for them to have that support system at home in addition to school, because school can only do so much.
I think, well, because I can speak to it because I actually grew up like that. Like, my mom was a single mom, and, you know, we did stay with my grandmother some of the times, but, like, I saw my mom working super hard. So, like, it had a different effect on me, I think, because I at the same time I understood, like, I'm having to do a lot of the work and take care of my little brother and stuff like that. But like, I would see my mom walking miles with groceries because we didn't have a car, and I would see my mom, like, because we lived out in the country, and like she literally had to take the bus stop. The bus didn't go where she was. She literally had to walk miles just to take us.
Yeah.
And I could see her like drop dead tired and stuff. So like that had an effect on me as like being grateful. But I think kids can just see, like, as long as you're being patient with them and you're talking to them and you're letting them know what's happening, I think that can be like that wouldn't be a hindrance. It's the type of parents that just don't show that they're working hard. It's almost like, you know how you tell your kids to try their best? Just try your best. I think kids can also see that in the parents as like they're trying their best. And I guess what I'm getting at is like it's kind of a travesty that some of them don't have that parent at home. But at the same time, it wouldn't be a hindrance for every single one of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think every child's different because it was a different effect for you. I had the same thing. My parents were immigrants, so there was no one teaching me. They didn't speak English. It was like you figure that shit out on your own. So, and then it was my turn to teach my sister, you know. So it was like, finally, my parents didn't probably learn English until I was about in the 3rd grade. So my sister got the better end of it because by the time she got to 1st grade, they already knew English, you know what I'm saying? And I had already struggled all these years. Meanwhile, my parents were trying to, figure out the English language, and they finally did, but I was already in 3rd grade. By then, you've already pretty much developed your reading skills more or less, you know what I'm saying?
I think it helps like with your individuality too, because then now you're already like self-teaching, self-learning, where it's like, oh, I'm like my own person.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of like, all right, Cynthia, but it was my punishment though. It was like, if you don't help her, then you can't go outside. And I never understood that part, but that's a whole other podcast with me and maybe a therapist. I don't know, right? But before we move on to our private episode, guys, again, if you guys want more of this podcast, come on over to the Patreon, Her Lounge podcast. I'm sorry, Patreon.com/Her Lounge podcast. Come be a part of her world. But I am going to have my friend Hillary on the podcast. I believe it's going to be the 3rd Monday of October. But I'm going to confirm it. She's out of town right now, but check this out. So she is she's in a startup. She is the startup director of a startup company called Smart Families. And what Smart Families is, her kids are in a private school, so this is in a private school setting, which they just hired them. This is how their startup has begun, to spread it through all over schools, districts, okay? Excuse me. So what this is you are committing, you sign a paper that says you will not give your child a cell phone until they get 14, which would be, I guess, high school. And so these are parents who are committing to not giving their children any type of gadget until they turn the age of 14. Because she sent me this amazing article that she is writing, guys. This is just a rough draft, so it's not complete, but she's letting me read it. And just the amount of information that's on here, man, it just, I feel like once people read this is just about this right here, it's just about like the way the brain works and the brain development of it. And I think once this article goes out, I think that maybe more of those parents, and this is going back, y'all know me in this subject, and I know you'll be like, damn, does this girl not ever talk about anything else except about kids transitioning? But it's so crazy the amount that I see, because I saw it in the elementary school, even when I went that day. There's just one kid. He's in 5th grade. They talked about that in the meeting, because if you have a child, also you're not allowed to like read anywhere like private with the kids. You have to be able to be seen, obviously, right, before you get in trouble. But anyway, the development of a child's brain is not even fully formed until you're 24 years old, right? So it's crazy that we could let a child as young as 3 years old make such a crazy decision to transform their body, or even you as a parent allow them to take medication. Well, we won't do like Tylenol and certain medications. But the topic on here is it tells you how much a cell phone will ruin a child's brain. The iPad, how bad it ruins a child's brain. So by the time they're 24, they're just going to be little puppets doing the same thing that they're actually working towards. And heard this video this morning, and I wanted to I don't know how we can play it, Juan. I don't even know if it'll hear. If you'll be
sedated, overly depressed.
So I want y'all to hear this. Come on, guys. This, what do you call it? Video, so that you can ponder on this for the next time by the time I have Hillary on, because I can't share this. I wanted to share this with my Patreons, this article, but I can't share it yet because it's not completed, and it was just for me to read right now. But check out this Instagram post that I heard today.
I don't know if Gen Z is aware that they're under attack, but there's a massive psyop to own their minds and mold them into overly sensitive, overly anxious, overly sedated, overly depressed, overly divided, and overly confused teenagers. You don't believe me? Go scroll for 5 minutes on TikTok and look at what the algorithm is pushing. The dumbest, most retarded videos you'll ever see in your life. And it makes them believe that this is what they have to do to be popular. The powers that be want the entirety of the next generation so weak that when a crisis comes along, one that they'll manufacture, of course, they will only look up to their government for answers. Oh, so this is the line where I give up all my rights? Okay. The way I see it, when you open the TikTok app, you are using their weapon against yourself like a loaded handgun straight to the temple.
Stop it. Get some help.
So I thought that was a good video to end with. So stay tuned for that podcast. I'm so excited to have her on and talk about this because, you know, I'm guilty of allowing my child to be on the iPad. I did not give the iPad to Penny as young as I gave it to Sunny. And I think a lot of parents say that with the second child, you're just kind of more easy than you are with the first one. So I might be guilty there in that department. But luckily I can control it on my phone and I can turn it off and I can see how long she's been off and I just shut it off when I see she's been on it too long. So anyway, stay tuned for that podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I will see y'all next week. Bye.